this particular topic because it taps into a bottomless well of optimism that architecture is, that brings to the world. We haven't been going there enough. But I also believe that we can do that with a certain level of responsibility. So I'm hoping that we can re-enliven that dimension of architecture. By its very nature, architecture is a convening profession. It brings together different fields: engineering, structural engineering, mechanical engineer, electrical, soil mechanics, environmental engineers, builders, acousticians, all sorts of players that help shape the building. I believe that there's a role that, or rather an aspect of this that we can elevate and amplify in allowing architecture to not just impose one way of looking at the world, but allowing these different voices to come together to truly show that there's a diversity of approaches to a complex problem, but also that the complex problems that the world is putting in front of us does require that we mobilize our synthetic skills, our convening skills to address those questions. So I'm just asking that we become much more attentive to that power that architecture has. I also believe that even in its expressive capacity, when architecture becomes too singular and becomes the same hand that designs the building, designs the paintings on the walls, the doorknob, everything, it becomes too homogenizing and too hegemonic. And that I'm hoping that architects can also re-enliven an aspect of their profession where they were hosts of the other arts, not just the only art. So creating space for painting, space for sculpture, space for graphics, space for the virtual reality to express themselves, coexist, clash, and how to orchestrate them rather than to just make them all become architecture. The number 2020, whether it is because it's connected to vision or to the grades we get in school, has always been seen as a very important milestone, right? We want a 2020 vision. We want, I'm sure historically there have been other years like that. The millennium was one. For dystopic reasons, 1984 was one. Right? But 2020 is upon us, and it has been in the public imaginary a very important year that describes a point in the future. Might not be where we wanted it to be in some places, but there is a beautiful challenge in the fact that you're living in the year of the milestone towards the future, and stopping to assess where are we, where we're going around that year, but also to say, well, if the future is now, what are we going to do about it? So that's why I'm highlighting that, and I think it's consistent with the theme. The writings and concepts of the late German sociologist Ulrich Beck, who argued that we live in a risk society, a society that has increasingly become aware that it lives in danger of its extinction or potential extinction, annihilation by its own methods. Crises such as the nuclear crisis, the climate, are human-made and a result of advances in technology one way or the other. According to Beck, in its initial stage, risk society resorts back to technology to help solve the very problems that technology has created. Again, maintaining the, we'll call it modernist, but the approach that technology has a very deterministic role to play in shaping the future of society. So only after exhausting that possibility that risk society will wake up and say, it's not going to be technology that will get us out of that. It's going to be our own will, our own imagination, our own collectivity that brings this problem to where it needs to be, to its political and communal level. So we need to understand that technology can partake in the shaping of the future, but it's a tool. It's not the aim or the end. It's ultimately our collective imagination that will get us to the future. At a very practical level, I'm hoping to be able to give the participants more time, enough time, so that they can experiment, test, assess, and all. But my main advice has to do with the way architecture is presented through exhibition, and how it is very important to present it not as just documents of drawings, models of something that is not there, but presented in a manner that we would present a project to a contractor or to a client. This is an exhibition where half the people attending it are not architects. Half of them are young, and therefore it's very important to convey their ideas through the experience of the exhibition rather than through the documents assembled in it. So it's important that it is about interacting with the visitor in a very effective way, rather than asking of the visitor to stop, read, analyze, assess drawings slowly, carefully only. That doesn't mean that we should not be able to do that. It's just that there's an aspect to every exhibition that has to be experiential.